Hey, yo, I gotta start this video off by saying number 9 was talking about some of y'all this chapter, bro. He said, how come you be acting different on the internet than what you act in person? Hey, yo, chapter 107 of Kaiju number 8 was a top 3 chapter that we have ever gotten in this series. I loved seeing Kaiju number 9's inspirations and why he is doing what he is doing. But even more so, as this series keeps on going on, I'm really starting to notice that Kafka and Kaiju number 9 are literally polar opposites of each other. From the aspect of Kaiju number 9 is something that, from what we know, starts off as a monster and has intaken more and more humans over the years, and that has led to him being more human-like than kaiju-like. But Kaiju number 9 still wants to prove that he is a kaiju at the end of the day. That is the side that he is on, and he thinks of humans as deranged creatures, while Kafka was a human that intook a kaiju and has slowly become more monster-like because of that. Yet he still wants to prove his humanity to not only himself, but all those around him too. So I love seeing this duality between those two as we keep on going. But those questions that Kaiju number 9 was asking in this chapter, there were a handful of them that had me thinking, is Matsumoto trying to give us the hint as to what is really going on right now? The one that really stuck with me is, can you turn humans into kaiju if you expose them to fault energy? Is this how maybe Kaiju number 8 was created? My first thought whenever I saw this was Kaiju number 8, especially since we know that number 8 showed Kafka that ghost samurai at the ryunei shrine. Is that because, hey, maybe somehow that old ryunei shrine member was brought close to a fault and ended up becoming a kaiju themselves? And on top of that, is this the process that is used to make kaiju? If that's the case, then it makes sense why Hoshina thought that Kaiju number 9's base might be nested in some sort of fault. Because if number 9 is close to a fault, then he can harness and use that energy to make stronger kaiju. And that is probably how he made the daikaiju for this upcoming war, 11 through 15. And on top of that, the other question that he asked that made me wonder, is this how number 9 was made? Is when he said, what would happen if plant kaiju infected human brains? In fact, what would happen if I left the brain and made them a parasite? Keiji Itami described number 9 as a virus type kaiju, right? And the way that he operates is like a virus. Is number 9 mushroom looking head literally an old like kaiju plant mushroom that infected a human brain and this is what became of it? I don't know, yo. I'm going down rabbit holes right now and I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's go ahead and get into it. So chapter 107 starts off exactly how we said it would in our last chapter review. The chapter starts off with Kafka pressing Kaiju number 9. That modified twin blast lands a clean hit directly on Kaiju number 9's chest and exposes his core after one hit. But we come to figure out that Kaiju number 9 actually protected his core by compressing that Kaiju number 2 shield all down around his core so that no matter what Kafka did right there, he wouldn't have shattered Kaiju number 9's core to begin with. And I thought that it was honestly funny to see this just thinking back to earlier in the series. Whenever Kaiju number 9 first pulled up in Kikoru and tried to shoot her with those finger blasts, well, Kikoru compressed all of her suit shield down to just her chest area so that the blast wouldn't penetrate deep enough to kill her. Well, it seems like Kaiju number 9 learned from Kikoru and used that same exact thing just now whenever Kafka tried to attack him in the chest. And from there is when we see Kaiju number 9 really start flexing his guns, yo. Number 9 gets up and shoots off an energy blast at Kafka that creates dust and rubble flying up everywhere, and 9 disappears into the dust. And as it's starting to settle, 9 appears out of nowhere, bro. Jump scare. I looked at this panel like 5 times in a row because I was so surprised. And 9 says, so the last obstacle standing in my way is you, is it? And pulls up and punches Kafka's head into the cement so hard that everything around them just explodes. And 9 from there goes on one of the most diabolical monologues that we have gotten in this series. And I can't lie, the monologue is pretty hard too. And on top of the monologue being hard, again, it was dope to see what is inspiring Kaiju number 9, bro. Nine goes on to tell Kafka that he knows that he used to be a former human. And more than anything, these humans throughout this war have truly surpassed Number Nine's expectations. And we are making this war fun for him because he gets to learn more about humans. He talks about how over the years he's studied us, he's dissected us, he's ate us. And as he keeps on doing these things, he evolves more and more. And that is why I started this video off by saying that Number Nine is literally us versing a monster that we created. I'm sure that prior to him gaining this amount of intelligence, obviously he was a kaiju of some sort, but the more that he has taken in humans and the more that he has learned from humans, the more that he has evolved. So all of these worst parts of his intelligence that we are seeing, they are things that are directly influenced by the human culture that he has been around since the beginning of his intellectual life. And that is the part that is scary for me, bro. The fact that this isn't monster-like tendencies. These aren't things that monsters long for, bro. A kaiju that doesn't have intelligence is probably just trying to live at the end of the day. The same exact way as a lot of animals that live in this earth right now have a basic survival. They want to live at the end of the day. But Number Nine getting more humans and eating them and dissecting them and studying them has led to this enhanced intelligence and this enhanced longing that what is funny is being a kaiju will not satisfy Number Nine at this point because he has a thirst and a longing for knowledge. And that knowledge is all human based. None of this knowledge is kaiju based, right? The things that he wants to know, the questions that he asks, it's all because he wants to know more about what makes humans human, bro. What is love? What's the difference between love and friendships? What is society? What is law? What is religion? What is God? These are things that we can't answer as humans right now in 2024. These are things that wars are getting fought on right now as I'm making this video. So the fact that these are things that he is questioning, what is envy? What is jealousy? These aren't things that can be satisfied from being a kaiju. These are things that he is longing for, things that can never truly be met with the world that he is trying to create. If Number Nine brings about the kaiju era, these questions that he is asking himself right now can never be answered. If anything, the best thing that can happen to Nine for himself right now is literally to die while still having these curiosities, because if he lived to create the era that he wants, these are questions that will never be answered because they are human longings. They are human cultures. They are not a part of the kaiju world. So I thought that it was very oxymoronic to see that Kaiju Number Nine calls us deranged creatures and wonders so much about us, yet all of his biggest chasings as far as pursuit of knowledge all come from human concepts. I don't know. Obviously starting to get a lot more hyperbolic and deeper, but it was crazy to see some of those things, man. But after Kaiju Number Nine gets done explaining to Kafka that the reason that he is doing all of this is because he wants to learn more, he wants to gain more knowledge, he ends up showing Kafka a vision of the future that he wants to create. And bro, this was one of the most goosebump giving panels I have ever seen in this series, dog, for the sheer fact of it literally looked like body horror with what these kaiju were doing to the society at large, bro. Seeing a huge dragon kaiju scaling a building, seeing these plant kaiju growing out of people's chests, people's faces, growing out of people's backs, huge kaiju walking around in the background. This is the kaiju era that Number Nine wants to create. In fact, this panel was scarier than anything that I could have actually imagined whenever I saw the kaiju era. The fact that all of these humans inside of his kaiju era still maintain some of their human appearance, bro. The fact that there's still going to be random, huge, crazy looking monster kaiju as well. This is nothing that can happen to our future. And Kafka says that right then and there and says, I have to kill this thing right here and right now before it can make any more progress towards its goals. He tries to gear up and punch number 9 again. Number 9 stops Kafka's hand with one punch, the same way that Kafka stopped Kaiju number 13's full running charge punch with one hand. I saw that panel, bro, and despair started pulling over me a little bit, but number 9 said, your attack earlier showed how much you've grown, but now let me show you how much I've grown. Kafka says that he can feel number 2's presence, and we end off things on the scariest, most despair-inducing panel standing in front of Kafka since this series has started. We see Kaiju number 9 fully grow in size with Kaiju number 2's head popping out of one side. So number 9, number 2, and Isao are all versing Kafka right now, bro. It is basically a 3v2, 9-2 Isao versus number 8 and Kafka. Who's pulling it out? And I'm telling you right now, Kafka ain't doing it by himself, bro. He needs Mina's assistance, or Narumi or Reno. We need more people to pull up to the scene right now to give us any sort of fighting chance against that thing that I saw at the end of chapter 107, dog. I have never seen something so intimidating in this series. And on top of that, we already know the damage that number 2 did on the town of Sapporo. We already know that even the number 2 suit, nobody in Defense Force history could even use it other than Isao, the same way that 6 is with Reno. So if that is the case, imagine the power, the raw strength that number 9 has gained from number 2 now being a part of him. That shockwave stuff mixed with everything that 9 can already do, boy, I knew that 9 was going to be on the up at the end of this chapter, but this is starting to look like one of those mountains where it's like, how do we even begin to start scaling this mountain? Again, I think that Kafka is going to need help from other people in the Defense Force, and I think that that is part of what this arc has really been like progressing towards. It's been progressing towards teaching Kafka that he doesn't have to do this alone. So that is one positive that I would say with this. The fact that we are seeing something that is so despair-inducing, the one thing that could help Kafka right here and us as readers is to realize that Kafka is not in this fight alone. Narumi, Mina, Reno, or Kikoru could possibly pull up and try to help Kafka. And on top of that, number 8 can help Kafka if Kafka tries to communicate with number 8. Again, I keep saying it at the end of my most recent chapter reviews, but we still have to wait for number 8 to have some sort of awakening with Kafka, some sort of way for them to communicate with each other and understand each other, a way for Kafka to understand why number 8 did find him and was looking for him. And that is what I think that this number 9, number 2 combined monster is going to create for Kafka, the opportunity to communicate with number 8. But I think that next chapter, we are going to get slapped up a little bit and hopefully get a little bit more lore. I've loved these last handful of chapters, and I know y'all have too, dog, but whew, it's starting to look scary, y'all. It's starting to look scary. So I'm gonna probably end up dropping another video on Kaiju number 8, either later this week or early next week. There's a couple of topics that I want to talk about, but if there's anything specifically that you want me to make a video on, leave it in the comments below. And yeah, other than that, I will talk to y'all later. If you watch this video, as always, arigato, and tune back in for some more Undead Unluck content and some more Kaiju number 8 content. Until then, peace.